Chapter 251. His wife is right. She was a person who rarely read financial news, but even if she didn't pay attention to it, it didn't mean that others didn't either. In the office, teacher Sabrina was the fan of Anderson's cosmetics. Every day, she popularized the news knowledge in the office, making it hard for her to not know about it even if she wanted to. Just like this, she leaned on the desk and asked seriously, "Teacher Green, when exactly do you plan on revealing your relationship with Mr. Walton? Now that the rumors are flying around, it is said that the Anderson family wants to use his daughter's relationship with the CEO of Walton Group to reshuffle Anderson's group to prevent their son-in-law from seizing the Anderson family's property. Are you not angry?" Teacher Mia shook her head and laughed speechlessly. "Teacher Sabrina, where did you get this melon from? This is too unreliable. Mr. Walton has sealed his relationship with the teacher Green in school. Who would dare spread it around? But we know. The people outside don't know. They don't. Of course, it's just the rumors outside, and because of that, the rumors about the Mr. Walton and the young miss of the Anderson family were spread out." Smiling without uttering a word, most of these rumors were made by the mother and daughter of the Anderson family. But this time, how did they even manage to scheme against John Anderson? Just as she was thinking, Mark had also joined in. "Didn't they say that the Anderson family was looking for a good son-in-law, and now they want to reshuffle? Is this not reasonable?" Teacher Sabrina mysteriously said, "Mark, how can you as a man be so innocent? I have heard that this CEO of Anderson's group doesn't have a good relationship with his wife. Furthermore, outside, he has an illegitimate child." Hearing this, her heart tightened as she looked at Sabrina. Seeing the three of them staring at her, Sabrina thought that they would be interested in this topic, so she decided to just leave her table, turned around and faced the three of them, and began to analyze them all. A relative of mine, who was once an assistant in the Andersons group's secretariat room for a few days. One day, when he went to deliver documents to the boss with his teacher, she heard his wife, the CEO, scolding the CEO in her office. At that time, the teacher didn't let him listen and dragged him away. But he said that he definitely didn't hear wrong, that boss had an illegitimate child outside. If that's the case, does it make sense that the Anderson family needs to reshuffle their cards and prevent the property from falling into the hands of their illegitimate children? She held the glass with both hands and looked out of the window. She smiled. "I'll think about it carefully. Teachers, I need to make a trip to the classroom first. There's a class reunion. Do you want to go with me?" Seeing the three of them wave their hands, she took the folder and left. Walking on the road, she let out a faint sigh. Her relationship with William Walton was originally one that she did not want to reveal, but now she could not. After all, there was Jack Walton. Her hand rested lightly on her lower abdomen, feeling a little worried. However, this would only last for 3 months at most. 3 months later, even if she wanted to hide it, she probably wouldn't be able to. At noon, she went to the cafeteria with teacher Mia. Before she even finished eating, Amy called her. As she ate, she picked up her cell phone. "Hello, Amy? Laura, are you in a good position to listen to the phone?" She looked at Mia and laughed, nodding. "Yes, is there anything I can help you with?" "I just want to ask, are there any conflicts between you and our CEO's sister?" "You're talking about Betty Anderson?" "Yeah." "What's wrong?" she asked, instead of answering her question. "She asked me what kind of relationship I have with you. I said that she was my friend, but she said that she knew of the conflict between the two of us in the Walton group. From the looks of it, she had investigated us, and she wants to ruin our relationship." Laura Green's expression deepened. She saw Amy yesterday, and Betty Anderson would find her the next day. Could it be that Betty Anderson had sent people to follow her? Did she say anything else? She even asked me if I wanted revenge. She could help me, but I said no, because what happened in the past is already in the past. But she seemed unwilling to give up and even asked me to go shopping with her on Saturday. Of course, I rejected her. I am afraid if she will use me to against you. Amy, thank you for telling me these things. Don't thank me. I've always felt that I owed you. I'm rather happy to have a chance to return this debt to you. She smiled. But helping me like this, aren't you afraid that if you go against Betty Anderson, you'll lose your job? A little worried, but with Anderson's group's current situation, who knows when it will be my turn to cut staff. Rather than worrying about it, I might as well enjoy it. If she makes things difficult for you, you tell me. I'll get William Walton to help you find another job. In this case, don't I owe you another favor? What do you owe me? Isn't it only right for friends to help each other? Amy was moved in her heart. Thank you, Laura. You're too polite. After hanging up, she found William Walton's number and dialed it. When the call connected, William Walton was in a good mood. You took the initiative to call me. You definitely did not ask me to eat. Did I guess wrongly? Her tone was not friendly. Let me ask you, when exactly do you plan to get married with Betty Anderson? Who? You heard it already. Stop putting on an act. William Walton thought for a while, then asked, What? Betty Anderson went to look for trouble with you again? The Anderson family spread rumors every day that they want to marry you, but you didn't come out and clarify it. Don't you have to marry her because you don't know her well every day? William Walton could not help but laugh. Yep, my wife is right. This matter, it is my fault. Your husband will clarify it now. What does it have to do with me if you want to clarify or not? After she finished speaking, she hung up the phone in a huff. William Walton listened to the busy signal from the other side of the phone, smirked, and picked up the internal call to make a call. Daniel, asked the reporters from Starry Sky Financial Group to come over to see me this afternoon. Chapter 252, I like my wife the best. Huh? Daniel was stunned. What? Didn't you hear it? I heard it. I'll contact them right away. He hung up. Daniel was puzzled. The reporters from the Starry Sky Financial Group had already come here countless of times, but Mr. Walton refused to accept the interview. What was the situation? Why did he not understand? In the school cafeteria, when teacher Mia saw Laura Green hang up, she couldn't help but be speechless. You are so capable. Laura Green came back to her, and she then smiled in embarrassment. Not at all. To be honest, when I saw your Mr. Walton, I was always afraid of him, but you casually scolded him like he was a child. Is he really that scary? Teacher Mia gestured a few times at her face. It's not that scary, but it gives people a cold feeling. The person's face says that no one is allowed near. In short, it's not the type that makes people want to voluntarily approach. As expected, the William Walton in the eyes of others was different from the one in front of her. In the afternoon, it was almost time to get off work. She was just about to go to the classroom to take a look, so she left first if there was nothing else to do. However, teacher Sabrina, who was sitting across from her, suddenly exclaimed, "Oh my God, Teacher Green!" She raised her eyes to look at her. What's wrong, Teacher Sabrina? Mia also looked at her. It was so sudden, it scared me. Sabrina took off the earphone in her ear, looked at her, and said, "What a huge piece of news." As she spoke, she took off the earpiece on her phone, turned the video she was watching to its loudest, and went to the side of Laura and Mia. It's hard for me to describe my feelings right now. You can see for yourselves. The two of them looked at Sabrina's phone screen at the same time. The video that appeared was of William Walton receiving an interview from a reporter. Laura Green and Mia looked at each other, and the two of them continued to look at each other. The reporter first asked him a few personal and corporate questions, and asked him to give a life advice to the college students who were about to be hired. When the interview was almost over, the reporter asked, "Mr. Walton, in the end, I especially want to ask a question on behalf of our female compatriots." William Walton nodded. "Go ahead. What kind of girl do you like the most when it comes to choosing a partner?" William Walton replied without thinking, "I like my wife the most." The reporter was stunned for a moment. This was gargantuan news. Does this mean that the Mr. Walton is married? William Walton laughed meaningfully. My wife said that she wants to be married secretly, so I will not answer this question. Also, I want to make it clear that my wife's surname is not Anderson. Today's interview will end here. As she stared at the screen, her face turned black. How was this not answering? This was clearly announcing to the whole world that he's married. Just as she was dumbstruck, Sabrina tightly held onto her arm from the side. Teacher Green, aren't you trying to be too secretive? How can you even trick us? Or do you mean, you just didn't tell me? Oh, no. Mia patted Sabrina's arm. Teacher Sabrina, don't be so excited, no one knows. She said in an embarrassed tone, I'm sorry, teachers. I was just thinking. This matter is temporarily kept secret. I never thought that this William Walton would actually kid. Why are you keeping it a secret? Sabrina looked even happier than the bride. He is the most powerful man in our city. Marrying him is the dream of all the unmarried girls in Philadelphia. You should announce to the world the moment you get the marriage certificate. This man is yours. How can you be so calm? Teacher Green, I really want to take a look at your head. Laura Green raised her hands to cover her head, staring at the excited Sabrina. She said, I'm just afraid of trouble. Look, it's so quiet like this. I'm just crazy. Sabrina said frantically. It doesn't matter. You have to treat. This is a heavenly happy occasion. Don't you think this is Teacher Mia? Mia endured laughing. Who was it that came the next day after having dinner with Mr. Poor, Walton, and shouted about indigestion? Sabrina was extremely embarrassed. Isn't it understandable that I never ate such expensive food in my life? Mia could not help but chuckle. Me too. At this moment, her phone rang. When she saw the caller ID, she frowned, stood up, and walked out of the office. She walked to the corner where no one was and picked up the phone. Her voice was cold. Hello. You're married to Mr. Walton? She raised her eyebrows. What does that have to do with you? Laura, you slut, you are just a woman born from a mistress. What qualifications do you have to marry Mr. Walton? Whether I have the right or not is not up to you to decide. The marriage certificate in my hand will tell you the truth. Betty Anderson. Do you really think that as long as you spread the news of your affair with William Walton, it will change your entire life? I have said it countless times. You wouldn't even be able to enter William Walton's eyes. You wait. I won't let you get off easy. After Betty Anderson finished speaking, she hung up. She walked to the window and let out a light breath. Since things had come to this point, she could only try her best to deal with it. She felt that even William Walton announced the news of marriage, he would definitely have a way to conceal her well. Therefore, she really did not think that she would be found out by the reporters. Furthermore, in such a short period of time, in the afternoon, after work, she and teacher Mia came down from the office building. As the two of them stepped out of the office, more than a dozen reporters swarmed over. Holding the microphone, they surrounded her. "Hello, Miss Green. May I ask if you're Mr. Walton's wife?" "Miss Green, last time on the news, was it you who was covered by Mr. Walton's clothes?" "Miss Green, can you tell me about your relationship with Mr. Walton?" Taking a few steps back, this scene was truly terrifying. Teacher Mia went up and hid the Laura Green behind her and said to the reporters, "My apologies, reporters. This is a school. Teacher Green does not accept any interviews. Please leave quickly." Then she turned back and tried to push through the crowd to get her back to the office. However, the two of them were tightly surrounded. Not a single gap could be opened. While the two of them were at a loss about what to do, a reporter was pulled aside and forced into the crowd. The crowd only saw that person walk to the side of the affectionate side, forcefully pulling her wrist, and walk away. Mia only reacted when the reporters followed the car and left. Oh my God, if she was not mistaken, that person should be the current CEO of Anderson's Group, Nick Anderson. Chapter 253. What do you want to do? Nick Anderson drove very fast. In less than 15 minutes, he had easily ditched the car of the reporter who was driving over. She kept looking back nervously. When she saw that there was no one behind her and the wide road was empty, she finally felt more at ease. She turned her head to look at Nick Anderson. "Brother, thank you." Nick Anderson's expression became solemn and did not reply. When she saw his expression, she thought to herself, this is bad, forgetting that this great Buddha was hard to deal with. "Brother, don't talk. I don't want to hear anything right now." She raised her eyebrows. She was truly finished. The car drove all the way to the expressway. "Brother, where are we going?" Nick Anderson still did not make a sound. She felt anxious. "Brother, let's stop at the front service area and have a talk." Nick Anderson still had a cold expression and did not speak, nor did he express anything. Just as she was thinking about what to do, her phone rang. She took out her phone from her bag. Seeing that it was William Walton, she quickly picked it up. Just as she said the word hello, her phone was snatched away by Nick Anderson. Because his body movements were too big, the car tilted to the side, but he quickly got it right again. Nick Anderson hung up the phone, turned it off, and put it back in his pocket. She was anxious. "Brother, what are you doing?" Nick Anderson shouted. "If you don't want to die along with me on this highway, then shut your mouth." She instantly shut up, and her hand unconsciously covered her lower abdomen. Of course, she didn't want to die. She couldn't take the child with her. Annoyed, she settled herself in the passenger seat and stopped talking to him. 2 hours later, Nick Anderson stopped his car in front of a villa on the outskirts of the city district. He got out of the car, walked to the door of the passenger seat, and opened it. Laura Green raised her head and looked at him with worry. "Brother, where are we?" "Get out." After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked back into the villa. Hesitating for a moment, she stepped out of the car and followed him in. There was no one in the villa, but it was surprisingly clean. Nick Anderson dragged the tie off and threw it onto the cabinet beside the door. Then, he casually sat down on the sofa in the living room. She walked to the opposite side of him. There was only a table between her and him. "Brother, I know that you were very angry when you saw the news. The Anderson family and the Walton family have their enmity, but the Andersons Group has changed their nature because of the Walton Group's scheme. I know about all of this, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with marrying William Walton, because I am not from the Anderson family. I do not have any grudges with William Walton." Nick Anderson's voice was profound and cold. "So that's why you still think that you did the right thing?" She lowered her eyes. After hesitating for a moment, she nodded. "Marrying someone who's good to me is always right." "Is he nice to you? Heh, my silly little sister, haven't you figured it out yet? From what I know, you have been a home tutor for the past few months in Walton family, but before that, he did not know that you were John Anderson's daughter, and so he had never paid any attention to you. Between you and him, it started when he found out that you were my sister. Do you understand?" Hearing Nick Anderson's words, she carefully recalled his words. She and William Walton started from the moment she got drunk and slept with him the whole night. However, on the second day, he saw her meet her big brother. So from the very beginning, William Walton had indeed misunderstood her relationship with his brother. "Laura, I've told you many times to keep your distance from him. You clearly promised me, but why didn't you listen to me? Do you know that you have been placed in a place of no return by him?" She shook her head, refusing to listen to these negative words. "Brother, this matter isn't as serious as you think." "Why not? Tell me, if other people found out that you were the illegitimate daughter of the Anderson family, what would they say?" William Walton targeted the Anderson family and almost caused the Anderson family to collapse. Everyone knew about this. As John Anderson's daughter, how could you be a match to his? There are so many women around him, but why did he choose you? Do you really think he has to be with you? Laura, among all the men in this world, other than me, no one truly treats you well. Why are you so naive? Did you forget Avery? Don't talk anymore. She turned around with her back facing him. Brother, my problem is my own choice. Even if I get hurt in the end, it is my own decision, and I have to bear the consequences. How will you bear the consequences? Like Auntie, using that fatal way? Laura, you don't listen to advice at all. Biting the corner of her lips, she clenched her fists. Brother, you are my brother. I respect you. You are good to me, and I thank you. But that's not a reason for you to interfere in my life. I don't like having my life dominated by others. Nick Anderson looked at the figure of her back, clenching his fists tightly. She saw that he did not say anything. Hesitating for a few seconds, she turned around. Before she could even stand up, Nick Anderson, who had already stood up, rushed over and hugged her tightly. She was stunned. Brother, don't be with him. He is the greatest enemy in my life. If you marry him, then you will become my enemy. Laura, I don't want to be your enemy. Do you understand? She let out a soft sigh. She raised her hand, wanting to let go of Nick Anderson's hand. Nick Anderson hugged her even more tightly. She said, You're strangling me so much that I can't breathe. Laura, promise me. I can't promise you that, she said, giving up the struggle. She stood firmly where she was. Her voice was gentle. We are already married. What's so good about William Walton? Why are you so self-deprecating? Laura Green said with displeasure. Marrying him is self-defeating. Let me go. Sensing her anger, Nick Anderson slowly let go. She turned around and took 2 steps back, maintaining some distance between them. She exhaled. I know how much you hate him and Walton family, but what do the Anderson family and Walton family's matters have to do with me? My surname is Green, and I am a woman who hates the Anderson family to the bone. I wish for something to happen to the Anderson family, and I wish that John Anderson, Helen Anderson, and Betty Anderson could live in the streets. I want to take revenge for my mother, and I want to trample all over the 3 of them ruthlessly. Therefore, for William Walton to be able to help me deal with the Anderson family, that is what I wish for. Being able to marry him is a good thing to me. After saying that, she turned around and walked out. Nick Anderson stood in place. Just as she was about to pull the profound handle, he said coldly, Laura, don't waste your strength. You can't leave. Chapter 254, Not qualified to persuade me to be lenient. Laura froze for a moment before she turned her head to look at him. What do you mean by that? There's no bus stop here, no taxi, and you don't have a cell phone. You can't get in touch with the car. Then I'll leave. The nearest bus stop is 10 miles away. There are no streetlights in the area, so if you can reach a safe place in the dark, you need at least 6 hours. If I were you, I would choose to rest here. She bit her lips. William Walton will find me. There's no surveillance here, so William Walton couldn't find you. This is also the reason why I brought you here. Laura Green clenched her fist. You can't be trying to put me under house arrest, right? Nick Anderson turned around and walked towards the windows in the backyard. She stepped forward, scolding in displeasure. Big brother, why are you like this? This is father's wish. John Anderson did not turn around to look at her. He only said calmly, Father said that he does not wish for his daughter to be associated with the Walton family. Not long ago, he had even ordered me to pair his precious daughter with William Walton. But in the blink of an eye, he no longer wished for his daughter to be related to the Walton family? Don't you think those words are too face-smacking? You are different from Betty Anderson. We don't want you to be injured. Don't want me to get hurt. Your words really have 2 marks. She walked to the sofa and sat down. Although she was angry, she did her best to control her emotions. She did not intend to leave by herself. After all, she still had child in her womb. She could be fearless, but she could not let the child risk its lives with her. So if I don't agree to your request, are you going to keep me here for the rest of my life? She turned her head and looked at Nick Anderson's back coldly. Nick Anderson said, Father said that if it's necessary, he will send you abroad. What right does he have to do that? Although you will not admit it, your life was given to you by him. You can't deny this fact, right? She was so angry that she started laughing. Nick Anderson turned to look at her. What are you laughing at? Do you really think that we are harming you by doing this? The Anderson family will never think for me. It was like this in the past, and it is still the same now. If we don't think for you, then we won't care about you. She said, When I needed my father, that person told me that he didn't have a daughter like me. Now that I don't need one, he stood up and told me, Is it for my sake? Don't you think that's ironic? Is he worthy? Go back and ask him, did he forget who forced my mother to die? Laura, no one in this world will not make a mistake. Dad is your father after all. He has his troubles, so you can't hate him for the rest of your life. Then, she gritted her teeth. Do I have to forgive him? Forget my mother's death and forgive a man who never did his father's duty to me? One must learn to be tolerant. In the past, I had always thought that at least in the Anderson family, you would stand on my side, but now it seems that I have overestimated myself. Laura. She did not want to hear any more from him, so she interrupted him and said, You did not experience what I experienced, so you do not have the qualifications to persuade me to be lenient. In my life, I would rather have the entire world poke my back and scold me as being disloyal and unfilial than to forgive John Anderson. Nick Anderson looked at the tenacity in her eyes and knew that he couldn't persuade her. She had her own opinions since she was young. When she said she hated her father, she really did. Tomorrow morning I will definitely leave. If you don't let me go, in the future, no matter what William Walton does to you all, to the Anderson family, you will all deserve it. You better tell your father about what I have said, otherwise, only you will be able to bear the consequences. She turned her head to look at the ceiling. I'm going upstairs to rest. Laura, Nick Anderson called out to her. She walked up to the stairs and stopped, looking at him. Do you still have anything else to say? Regardless of whether you believe it or not, I am truly doing it for your own good. I do not wish for you to be harmed. Even if you hate me, I still hope that your life will be happy. After a moment of silence, she walked up the stairs. She did not speak because she did not want to be kidnapped by morality. Whether or not others were doing it for her own good, she could not understand such a forceful action. She went upstairs and locked the door. She went to the bed and sat down, but she was not sleepy. William Walton must be very anxious right now. She lay down on her side. When she was by his side before, she didn't think much of it. Suddenly, being forcefully separated like this, she actually felt that she missed him a lot. A rumbling sound suddenly came from her stomach. She exhaled. Hungry. Baby, I'm sorry. I can only let you down tonight. Believe me, Mom will definitely feed you tomorrow. She closed her eyes and went to sleep. If she slept, she wouldn't feel hungry. In a daze, she thought she heard the sound of a car turning off at the door. After that was the sound of someone pounding on the door and fighting downstairs. It was like a dream, she thought. She probably wanted to leave and go crazy, so why would she have such a dream? However, a loud bang woke her up. She suddenly opened her eyes as the sounds of fighting downstairs became clearer. And also Nick Anderson's angry roar. Even she can't get married for her entire life, I absolutely won't let your Walton family degrade her. Who do you think you are? You actually want to represent Laura Green? Today, I'll let you know what it means to overestimate one's own capabilities. She raised a hand to cover her lips. It was William Walton's voice. She quickly got out of bed, went to the door, unlocked it, and hurried downstairs. At that moment, William Walton and Nick Anderson were already fighting. She walked down the stairs and shouted, "Stop fighting, quickly, two of you get separate." But the two men were already addicted to it. Neither of them had heard what she had said. She stepped forward and grabbed William Walton with one hand and Nick Anderson with the other, and shouted loudly, "Both of you stop." William Walton pushed Nick Anderson away from him and turned to look at her. "Are you all right?" Nodding her head, she gave him a faint smile. "I'm fine." Looking at her smile, Nick Anderson felt his heart stinging. William Walton said, "Wait for a moment. I want to teach this man a lesson." She pulled him back. "Don't go. Take me away from here." William Walton stared at her face for a long time. She tightly held onto his hand, and in the end, pleaded with her expression. "I'm hungry. Let's go, please." William Walton turned his head and looked at him with cold eyes before leaving with Laura Green in his arms. She walked to the side of the door, as if she had thought of something, then turned around and walked back to Nick Anderson's side. "As for the words I've said tonight, you'd best return and bring them back to John Anderson." And Chapter 255 Green Hat. She opened her palm in front of him. "Give me my phone." Nick Anderson looked at her face and did not move. There was a coldness in her eyes. "I have a lot of memos stored in my phone. Please return it to me immediately." Nick Anderson turned around and walked to the side. He took out her phone from a drawer and gave it to her. There was no longer any hesitation for Laura. She turned and walked to William Walton's side, allowing William Walton to embrace her and leave. Exiting the villa, only then did Laura Green realize that William Walton had actually brought two cars over, and the cars were filled with thugs. William Walton brought her into his car and drove away from the villa. She looked at him with a faint smile on her lips. William Walton scoffed. "Why didn't you let me hit him just now? Did you feel sorry for him?" "I'm really hungry," she said, covering her stomach. "I was even dreaming about eating." William Walton frowned. "That bastard, he brought you here, but he's not giving you anything to eat. We didn't get here very long, and since the conversation wasn't pleasant, I went upstairs and locked myself in." Speaking of which, she said with admiration, "The capitalists are indeed powerful." "What?" "Just now, my brother said that there's no surveillance nearby. I originally thought that you might have to wait until tomorrow to find me, but I didn't expect you to find me here so quickly. That's why I felt that you were very powerful." William Walton smirked and snorted. "You're underestimating me." She nodded. Yes. My doggy eyes are looking down on people, all right." William Walton turned his head and could not help but laugh. "Heh, you are such a rare sight. This is the first time I've seen someone comparing themselves to a dog." She raised her hand and patted his arm. "You're acting this way again. What's wrong with me? You took off my stage and picked on me in a different way, making me feel awkward." After she finished speaking, she turned her head and looked out the window at the black scene outside. William Walton tilted his head and looked at her. "Are you angry?" "Humph." She ignored him. "How about this? I'll tell you a secret as an apology." Looking at him, she was somewhat curious. "What secret?" William Walton went close to her ear and used a voice that could only be heard by two people. "Actually, I relied on an object on your body to find you." Her eyes stared into his. At this moment, their faces were less than 5 centimeters apart. William Walton smelled the fragrance off her face and curled his lips. He moved closer and kissed her on the lips. She felt a bit awkward, so she leaned her head slightly backwards and pinched his arm firmly. William Walton endured laughing. Guess what item it is? She lowered her head and looked at her body. There was nothing on her body. William Walton sat upright. Let me remind you, it's an accessory. She looked at her bag. My phone? William Walton rolled his eyes at her. Wrong, your phone is turned off. Let me remind you that it's a gift from me. She opened her bag and stared at it for a while. Is it in my bag? William Walton clenched his teeth. Do I give you a lot of things? She looked at the chain on her phone and took out her phone. This one? William Walton snorted. Of course. But this. After staring at the hanging chain on her phone for a while, she asked, Are you telepathic with it? William Walton could not help but raise his hand and smack her head. Usually you are very smart, but today you are so stupid. How could I have telepathy with it? I set GPS in it. What are you installing this for? He smirked. Use it when I can't find you. She was emotionless, she said. You're too. She pursed her lips. That's her privacy. If she wanted to run, wouldn't she be caught in the nick of time? Tell me honestly, what did you do other than this? William Walton knocked on her phone. This one is enough, remember, do not take it off. In case something happens, it would be easy for me to find you there. So, if you offended me, I just didn't want you to find me? That won't happen, she disdainfully said. It's hard to say. Since you are infuriating. If there really is a time like this when I leave and you stay where you are, wouldn't it be enough if I let your vision be clear? Laura looked at him and lowered her eyes with a smile. William Walton looked at her smile and raised his eyebrows. Just now, he didn't hurt you, did he? Laura Green shook her head. No, he also listened to John Anderson's orders, which was why he brought me there. What do they mean? What do you think? Looking at him, she said in a muffled voice. Why did you say those words in front of the reporters today? To clear things up. You, she sighed. Didn't we already say that we were going to have a secret marriage? So, I told the reporters that my wife said she was going to have a secret marriage. That group of reporters are very powerful. It's not even a matter of minutes if they want to find out about me. Furthermore, the last time a reporter came to the school to surround me, when you came out to save me, they were already suspecting me. So what? What should I face? Can I hide it for a lifetime? But it's not like you don't know that, Jack, William Walton said calmly. For my marriage, as long as I feel happy, it's enough. Looking at him, she decided to remain silent, because he always had 100 reasons waiting for her. She took out her cell phone and turned it on. There were a few missed calls, and a few that William Walton had called. There were still a few messages. It was from Mia. She called back Mia's number. Mia quickly picked up the phone. Teacher Green, are you all right? She smiled. Teacher Mia, I worried you during the afternoon. I'm fine, don't worry. Why did that CEO of the Andersons group come here to bring you away? Various reasons. In short, I'm fine now. Then, you haven't seen tonight's news, have you? News? Due to her doubts, she turned around and looked at William Walton, then asked Mia, What's the news? I haven't had the time to watch it yet. About this, it's better for you to take a look at it yourself. It's too infuriating, I can't say it out loud. All right. After she hung up the phone, she immediately switched on the news on her phone. When she saw the content of the news, she was completely dumbfounded. She had suddenly become a celebrity that could make headlines. Because the scene of her being taken away by Nick Anderson was captured by many media tonight. When Mr. Walton's newly married wife was taken away, he wore a green hat on his head at the same time.